Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Diecast Garage. This is a Dukes of Hazzard edition of Diecast Garage. Yes, we are talking about that show right there, the Dukes of Hazzard, and that's why I picked this spot to film because I just wanted that to be in the background. Okay, jeez. Um, so as many of y'all know, I on my other channel, the Banjo Kid, which you all should go check that channel out. I got a lot more content on there that's banjo related, and also a very very old video that I have that I put in. I think maybe in 2022 or something like that is a go kart that my dad and I painted up and worked on and converted it basically into the General Lee. And we'll do that in a future video if you all want some more content, just like this video right here that you're watching. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to my two channels, Banjo Kid and then Diecast Garage. If you could subscribe to both of those channels, you're helping me a whole bunch. And for supporting this channel, because I want us to grow quite a bit. And I mean, on our YouTube shorts, we're doing really well on both channels, and I'm really happy to say that on our last video, the Dukes of I think where I showed off my Dukes of Hazzard collection, just in a little YouTube short, I think that video got over 100, maybe over 1,000 views. So that's pretty good for a new channel. But anywho, guys, let's jump in to the Dukes of Hazzard. So in today's episode of Diecast Garage, we're going to be discussing Dukes of Hazzard related stuff because we're going to be discussing the General Lee. We'll be discussing this car right here. Yes, and this is an original package from the 80s. That original General Lee that's still in the package. And I like to do a shout out to my friend Braden. He got this for me for my birthday, and this is so cool. Okay, I love having this car in the collection. It's one of the highlights of my collection, and we'll do a lot more videos with that in here. But anyways, so the General Lee. We're going to be talking about the General Lees, plural. Yes, there were a lot more General Lees than just one. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the history of the General Lee. Alright, so on the Dukes of Hazzard, we saw the General Lee perform many stunts like driving on two wheels, burnouts, and massive jumps. Now, all those stunts, they can take a toll on a car. For burnouts, I think they used 440 Chargers, and for jumps and the other ones, I think they had 340s and 340 Magnums, but never. Because in the show it says that the General Lee has a 426 Hemi in it, which is absolutely false. They never on the Dukes of Hazzard did a General Lee have a 426 Hemi in it. Never ever did they have one in it. Now, so they used the 440s for burnouts, like I said earlier, and the other engines that they used in General Lee's for jumps. Now, that's why that's one reason why they had to have multiple cars, is because they had to have multiple different motors in there. Because if you think about it, if you had one General Lee and you were constantly doing burnouts, you're always burning tires. You're always, a car's not going to last long. So let's jump into the history of exactly how many General Lees were used, and not including the miniatures. So the total number of General Lees used was between 286 and 321 General Lee cars throughout the filming of the entire Dukes of Hazzard, which is probably a good reason why 69 Chargers, 68 Chargers are so hard to find. Now, the General Lee, they did not just use 69 Chargers. They also used 68s and 70s. 68, 69, and 70. Those are the 3 years that they used for the Dukes of Hazzard. That of the General Lee. So the 68 Charger, the way that you could tell that if it was a 68 is that little marker light right there on the back. Obviously you can't see, but it looks like a little out thing. That would not have been there if it was a 68. Now, if it was a 70, that marker light would have been round, but it's very rare if they had that mistake and they didn't correct it. But you basically, the 68, 69, 70 Chargers were basically the exact same car. So that means you could put a 69 grill in a 68 Charger and a 68 taillight in a 70 Charger. If anybody remembers Fast and Furious, that was a 1970 Charger. And if you look closely enough, the taillights from Fast and Furious on their Charger and then roll over to the Dukes of Hazzard, that taillight on their on that Charger look exactly identical. Why? It's simple. Like I just said, it's the same car. It's the exact same car, guys. Other than just a few minor things, ever so slightly that you wouldn't even notice it, like the marker light thing, for example. Those little itty bitty details, Warner Brothers did not care about when they were originally filming Dukes. They didn't care because they were just they were trying to make these cars quickly, and they just needed to find something that looked like that was a Charger that was whether a 68, 69, or 70. Now also, the General Lee paint. This is also a common question that Dukes of Hazzard fans, such as myself, we get. I've never gotten these questions, luckily. But if y'all do have some questions about the Dukes of Hazzard, feel free to throw them down in the comments if I did not cover any of your questions on this video. And I will try and cover them in another video. So the Dukes of Hazzard, the General Lee, how they painted it is they used a can of spray paint, obviously, and then they first put they hand painted the decals onto the car, but that was when they were filming in Georgia, and whenever they moved out to California, then they started just putting vinyl decals on the car because they needed to make these cars quickly. And honestly, with the paint too, they were just mixing paint, making orange. Just that was kind of similar to what they had before, and then they just sprayed it onto the car because it was going to get absolutely demolished in a shot in the Dukes of Hazzard. So it didn't really matter. I mean, come on, it was just back then. 68, 69, 70 Chargers were not worth what they are now. They were not. I mean, back then you could probably get away with a Charger at a high price of $5,000. Now that probably doesn't seem like a ton now for a car, especially a classic car. But back then that was the equivalent of maybe $10,000. Now, just a plain Charger is gonna run you to about 20 to 40,000. Now, if it's a General Lee, that's gonna run you from 40,000 to 60,000, which I don't know about you. The go-kart was a lot cheaper than that, but also, on the real General Lee, you also get that feel of the Dukes of Hazzard. Now, what makes a General Lee a General Lee? Well, if you were building a General Lee for screen accuracy, like what they had on the show, you need an orange paint, you need a black taillights. That's one thing that we'll get to that here in just a minute when they messed up in the reunion. They actually, we'll go ahead and cover that. So John Schneider and Tom Wopat, they were filming the Dukes of Hazzard reunion movie, and they were racing against 00, and they were putting the fake moonshine in the back of the trunk. And for the show, they were using toy General Lees, such as this one. They were using that black taillight, the back taillight, and they were using toy General Lees to make the car rather than pictures from the actual show. Now, the reason for that is I have no idea, but John Schneider and Tom Wopat caught the mistake and were able to notify the producers so they could fix it for the rest of the film. But you will, in that movie, if you watch close enough, you will see the General Lee with an orange taillight. But while they're loading the fake moonshine into the back of the General Lee, you will see that it does have orange taillights on it, whenever you see 00, the Mustang, right beside it, which is a really iconic moment. But you mean, it's a simple mistake, but luckily they fixed it for the rest of the film. Anyways, what makes a General Lee screen accurate? Number one, obvious, just like I've been talking about, is the tail lights. That tail lights on General Lee's absolutely, positively have to be black, because they were back then they were simulating the exhaust of a rocket on the back of cars from that era, the American muscle cars. That's what they were replicating back then. And number two, the second biggest mistake on General Lee's is the interior color. Now, mine is an exception. It's a go-kart, and that's the only interior. And it would cost a lot of money to change the interior color on mine. But if you want it to be screen accurate, tan of the interior of the General Lee needs to be tan. But if you look on Waylon Jennings' General Lee, in the video where Chunky Monkey 40 has it's a thumbnail that has John Schneider sitting inside of a General Lee, which is Waylon Jennings' General Lee. The interior on that General Lee is black because obviously Waylon Jennings likes black. But that is not a show accurate car. But you know, it's an actual 69 Charger, but it's not screen accurate. But it also, don't get me wrong, black in a General Lee looks really good, but tan needs to be the color if it's screen accurate. Why'd they use tan? It's simple. Tan looks better on film. Actually, another thing that looks better on film, here, I'm going to grab this right here. Somebody made this custom, not for me. I bought it from Gold Flame Diecast. Shout out to Gold Flame Diecast in Wilmore, Kentucky. I'll take it out of the blister here. But the original color that they were going to use for the General Lee was silver. Was a Confederate silver, Confederate gray color, kind of like that. But they decided that gray didn't look good on screen, and plus gray just didn't look right for the car. That Confederate gray. And also, they were not planning on using the 1969 Charger. They were planning on using a Chevelle such as this. And they were going to make that the General Lee. But they couldn't keep that car in the budget, so they ran with the 69 Dodge Charger. Because it was cheaper back then, and it was, you know, probably, you know, now it has the opposite today because Mopars are more expensive than GM cars. Why? I don't really know. I really don't know. It might be because mostly of the Dukes of Hazzard, because a lot of Mopar cars have been used on screen. We don't know. Okay. Now, I think that's the two biggest mistakes that people make on General Lees. Those are the two that you absolutely need to know. And, one thing that I definitely would put on the General Lee, I don't care if you think it's racist or not, I don't care, put the rebel flag on. Look, I'm just going to show you. Put that thing on there. Put it right there. Do I agree with slavery? No, I don't. I thought it was a terrible thing. I think that nobody should go. By the way, I'm wearing my Abraham Lincoln shirt today, so Team America. But I really don't think that that you know, back then slavery was not a good thing. But I just put it on my General Lee because, I mean, yeah, it's just a decal on a car. It's just a decal on the car. People get so sensitive about that. I get it if you think it's racist. I think that slavery was racist, but you don't need to take it off the General Lee because that's what made the car the General Lee. That's the American flag was not on the General Lee. It's not actually the Confederate flag. It's the rebel flag, rebellion, rebel, not Confederate. It's been called both things, rebel and Confederate. I use rebel flag mostly, but it's either way. But anyways, from that subject, that'll launch into its whole another video. But they were, the General Lee is a iconic thing. even though the show is unfortunately not on air anymore, you can still go out to Walmart. Heck, I see the DVDs, the Dukes of Hazzard, all the time in Walmart. I see it, and I always think that's the best show on the shelf right now. That's the best show because the Dukes of Hazzard was about family values, short shorts, car chases, and doing the right thing. That's it. Now, if you think that oh my gosh, here I go back on that subject again. If you think the Dukes of Hazzard is racist, it is not. Tell me one time in the Dukes of Hazzard when it was racist. If you said that the Dukes of Hazzard is racist, you have obviously never watched an episode of the Dukes of Hazzard in your entire life. I'm telling you, that show is the best. And even if they blurred out the Confederate flag, people would still thought the Dukes of Hazzard is racist because, I'm honest, it's everywhere in that movie. It's or in the show, but still, Dukes of Hazzard is not racist. Yes, they have the Confederate flag, but that's it. That's it. And it's probably the most family-friendly show, especially after the first 5 episodes, because the first 5 episodes were filmed in Georgia, and that's there was a lot more cussing in there. Well, not as nothing compared to what it is now, but there was a little bit of cussing. But now they turned it into a family-friendly show when they moved out to California, because the Dukes of Hazzard was just supposed to be a break for the Incredible Hulk season break, was the Dukes of Hazzard. And then when the show picked up for more episodes, then they moved out to California. And you can tell when the set changed from that. If you look at the courthouse, you'll watch it change from the first 5 episodes, and when you roll into episode 6, then you'll see that the courthouse has changed. Oh, and another thing, the Dukes of Hazzard, the General Lee was not stick shift. That stick shift you hear is not even a charger. It was it's sound effects. It was from a sound effect company that was used the same sound company that all their sound was also used on the movie Bullet. If y'all have seen that movie, all those same sounds were used in the Dukes of Hazzard. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Dukes of Hazzard. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure to throw them down in the comment section below. We'll try to get to those questions as much as possible. And make sure to like and subscribe this video. Even if you don't like Dukes of Hazzard, please do me a favor and help me out. Subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more content, Dukes of Hazzard related, and also Volkswagen related. And we'll get to some of that in our next episode. All right, guys. I'll see you all later. Bye.